The distant stars blinked coldly in the void as the crew of the Odyssey drifted above the barren surface of the planet. A faint hum vibrated through the ship's hull, the only sound in the silence of deep space. Dr. Sarah Dillon, a brilliant yet unassuming astrobiologist, sat hunched over a holographic display in the dimly lit command center, her focus fixed on the readouts. They had been sent to this uncharted system to investigate an anomaly, a faint signal that had been pinging through the galactic frequency for millennia. The signal was old, ancient even, but it was undeniably artificial. "We're close," said Captain Marcus Reed, his voice steady, but filled with the weight of anticipation. His hand gripped the ship's armrest as the Odyssey descended toward the planetary surface. "Prepare for landing." The crew, an eclectic mix of humans and other galactic species, worked with practiced precision. Among them was Calathar, a tall, angular species from the star system Zarnak, who had a talent for deciphering alien technology. He glanced at the data as the landing thrusters engaged. "It's beneath the surface," Calathar muttered, his voice thick with a strange accent. "The artifact is buried deep, but the energy readings, they're off the charts." Sarah's heart raced. They had been speculating on the nature of the signal for weeks. Could it be an ancient relic? A forgotten weapon? The possibilities danced in her mind, each more thrilling than the last. The ship's engines powered down with a low final hum, and the landing struts sank into the soft, dark soil of the planet's surface. The team quickly suited up in their exogear, stepping out into the vast emptiness of the planet, their boots crunching against the dust. They moved swiftly, the air thick with the excitement of discovery. A massive canyon stretched before them, its edges jagged and uninviting. A deep ravine cut into the planet's surface, a scar on the landscape. The signal was coming from somewhere deep within it, echoing through the rocks like a hidden voice, calling out to them. As they descended into the canyon, the walls began to close in, casting long shadows. Sarah, leading the way, noticed something strange. The temperature had dropped suddenly, and the ground felt unnaturally solid beneath her feet. They had come prepared for an inhospitable environment. But this place felt different. There was a strange pull in the air, a subtle but undeniable force that seemed to guide them forward. As they approached a massive broken stone structure half buried in the earth, Calathar stopped, his eyes widening. "Here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. At the center of the ruin, nestled within a spherical chamber, was an object, a small black seed-like artifact, encased in a glowing cocoon of energy. It pulsed with an eerie rhythmic hum. The group stood in awe, their collective breath held in suspense. Sarah's fingers tingled, the sensation crawling up her spine, as if the artifact itself was aware of their presence. "Is this what I think it is?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Her eyes were fixed on the artifact, her mind racing with possibilities. Before anyone could answer, the cocoon's energy surged, and the ground trembled beneath them. A sudden pulse shot through the chamber, bathing them all in a blinding light. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Sarah's vision blurred, and she staggered backward, clutching her head as waves of intense heat and knowledge flooded her mind. Her thoughts became disjointed, merging with concepts far beyond her understanding. Then, as quickly as it started, the light faded. The artifact was silent once more. The hum of the chamber ceased. The crew stood frozen, the air now thick with the weight of what had just happened. "Dr. Dillon," Calathar said, his voice shaking. You're different." Sarah blinked, disoriented. The world around her had shifted. The universe itself felt different, like a veil had been lifted from her senses. Her mind raced, but there was clarity now, an undeniable clarity. She turned to the team, her voice steady, but carrying an unsettling weight. "We've just unlocked something beyond comprehension. And I don't think we're the only ones who know it." Above them, in the cold expanse of space, a shadowy figure watched silently, its ancient eyes narrowing with interest. The Vruxy had taken notice. The sensation of clarity pulsed through Sarah Dillon's mind as she stood in the aftermath of the artifact's release. The world felt sharper. She could see patterns in the air, in the way the dust motes moved through the light, how the breeze shifted the sparse vegetation outside the chamber. Everything seemed to speak to her now, like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't realized she was trying to solve. She shook her head, trying to regain some semblance of control, but it was impossible to ignore the rush of thoughts, the flood of understanding that poured through her like a torrent. "Sarah, are you all right?" Captain Reed's voice cut through her haze, his face etched with concern. He took a step closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder, but hesitated. Something had changed in her, and it wasn't just the way she looked at the world. I think so," Sarah replied, her voice shaky as she turned toward the artifact. The seed, now inactive, sat there innocuously, its surface smooth and dark like polished obsidian. But to Sarah, it was as if the artifact had unlocked the deepest corners of her mind. "I understand it," she thought. "I can feel it." Calithar, who had been cautiously scanning the chamber with his alien technology, stepped forward, his golden eyes gleaming with unease. "There's a ripple in the data," he muttered. "It's spreading through the systems. It's expanding." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, forcing herself to focus on Calithar. The urgency in his voice snapped her attention back to the present. "We're not the only ones who noticed that pulse," he said, his tone darkening. "The energy readings are off the charts. It's like the artifact just sent out a signal to the stars, and every intelligence within range is now aware of our presence." Reed's face tightened, his military instincts kicking in. "How long until they get here?" His eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon outside the chamber. Calithar tapped his device, the readout flickering as he processed the information. "At least several hours. But there's something else, something strange. It's not just a signal, it's a calling." He paused, eyes flicking back to Sarah. "Whatever this is, it's powerful enough to attract every major faction in the galaxy. And they'll be coming for it." The silence that followed hung heavy in the air. The realization sank in that this discovery, this ancient seed, was no ordinary artifact. It was a beacon, a call to the universe, announcing that humanity had unlocked a force that could alter the very fabric of existence. "Are we ready for what's coming?" Sarah whispered, more to herself than anyone else. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face whatever was about to descend upon them. Before anyone could respond, a distant rumble echoed through the canyon. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, as if the planet itself had awakened. Sarah's heart began to race. It was the first sign. Something, or someone, was already on the move. The Vruxy. Back aboard the Odyssey, Captain Reed quickly ordered the crew to prepare for an emergency departure. They needed to leave the planet before the approaching force arrived, but as they began to gather the data from the site, Sarah remained standing, gazing at the dormant seed. In that moment, she felt the weight of what had just happened settle deep into her bones. Humanity had taken its first step into a much larger world, one that would soon test every ounce of their strength, intelligence, and will. "Reed," Sarah called, her voice now steady, almost calm. "We can't just leave it. We have to study it. We have to understand it, before they do." The captain hesitated. He understood the importance of the seed, but the immediate threat of the Vruxy was real, and every moment spent here risked more lives. Yet, Sarah's words were persuasive. The seed was humanity's legacy, a weapon or a key to something far greater. He could see it in her eyes, the same hunger for knowledge that had driven his crew to this discovery in the first place. "Prepare for a temporary stay. We'll gather what we can, but we're not waiting around for them to land." As they prepared to extract the seed and make their exit, a lone scout ship broke through the atmosphere above, its silhouette dark and ominous against the distant stars. The Vruxy had arrived. The Odyssey's engines roared to life as it lifted off from the surface, the ground beneath them shaking as the ship ascended. Sarah Dillon, gripping the back of her seat, could still feel the pulse of the seed echoing in her mind. Her thoughts were racing, a tangled web of ideas, possibilities, and fears. It was as if the seed had unlocked a door to a universe of knowledge, and she could almost feel the vastness of what lay beyond it. But there was no time to process it all. "Captain," Callither's voice was urgent as he patched into the ship's communications. "The Vruxi aren't here for a peaceful exchange. I've been tracking their fleet, and they're bringing everything they have." Reed's jaw tightened as he glanced at the starboard monitor. The sleek form of the Vruxi scout ship hung in the distance, a stark contrast to the Odyssey's battered hull. "It's just one ship," Reed muttered, trying to steady his nerves. "We can take it down." But Sarah knew better. She could feel the weight of something bigger looming just beyond the horizon, and she wasn't about to let her guard down. "They're only sending a scout now," she said, her voice steady. "But they'll be calling in reinforcements. They know what they're dealing with. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." Reed barked. "We need to get out of here. Now." The Odyssey surged forward, its engines screaming as it shot through the atmosphere, the rocky landscape of the planet rapidly disappearing below them. Outside, the sky was darkening, a storm of incoming fire beginning to take shape. The Vruxi scout ship was closing in, its sleek silhouette cutting through the void with deadly precision. "Shields are holding for now," Callither reported, his eyes glued to the readouts. "But I don't know how long that will last. The Vruxi's weapons are more advanced than we anticipated." Just as Callither finished speaking, the scout ship fired, its energy bolt slamming into the Odyssey's shields with a deafening crash. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as the world outside flickered with flashes of light. The Vruxi weren't wasting any time. They had come for the seed, and they were prepared to burn everything in their path to get it. "Shields at 75%. Callither shouted, his voice strained. "We need to return fire, Captain." Reed's eyes narrowed as he gripped the controls. "I'm not looking for a fight. We're getting out of here. Full throttle." Another blast rocked the ship, and the warning lights on the console began flashing red. Reed's knuckles whitened on the controls. The Odyssey was faster than the Vruxi scout ship, but it was still outclassed in terms of firepower. They needed to escape, and fast. As the Vruxi ship closed the distance, the captain made a split-second decision. "Engage the hyperdrive," Reed ordered. The ship's engines hummed louder, and in an instant, the stars around them blurred into streaks of light. The Odyssey shot forward at faster-than-light speed, narrowly avoiding another blast from the Vruxi's weapons. Sarah exhaled in relief, her mind still spinning with the chaotic energy of the chase. But the moment of peace didn't last long. "Captain, they're following us," Callither said, his voice heavy with concern. "The Vruxi aren't letting us go. They're deploying a tracking beacon." Reed's face hardened. "We need to lose them. Now. Take us to the nearest jump point. If we don't shake them, this is going to get worse." As the Odyssey made its way toward the nearest star system, the crew could feel the weight of the situation settling over them. This wasn't just an escape mission anymore. They were on the brink of something much larger, something that could ignite a conflict across the galaxy. The Odyssey tore through the star system, a streak of light against the void as it fled the Vruxi pursuit. Inside, Sarah Dillon sat in the command center, her mind still buzzing with the knowledge the artifact had unlocked. Despite the chaos of their escape, there was a calm clarity in her thoughts. The seed had transformed her understanding of the universe, how civilizations had risen and fallen, how species had evolved, and how power could shift in the blink of an eye. Humanity had been given a gift, but that gift came with a burden. The Vruxi were only the beginning. "We've shaken them for now." Captain Reed's voice broke through her thoughts as the ship's emergency systems hummed in the background. "But it won't be long before they figure out where we are. We need a plan." Sarah snapped back to reality, focusing on the situation at hand. She knew their time was running out. "We don't just need a plan," she said, her voice steady, but filled with urgency. "We need to prepare. This isn't just about escaping. It's about taking control of our future. We've unlocked something far beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen." Reed glanced at her, a furrow in his brow. "You're saying we fight?" "No," Sarah replied, shaking her head. "We evolve." Back on Earth, the response to the discovery was immediate. The governments of the world, once fractured and divided by old allegiances, united in a rapid show of solidarity. News of the Odyssey's encounter with the Vruxi spread quickly, and as humanity learned about the seed's power, panic mingled with awe. The world's leaders knew the stakes had just skyrocketed. The Vruxi were not the only threat. There were other forces in the galaxy, rival empires and factions, that would undoubtedly take notice of humanity's sudden emergence. At the United Earth Command, the newly formed Global Council convened to discuss their next steps. Dr. Sarah Dillon, as the central figure in humanity's newfound rise, was called upon to brief the council. She stood before a holographic projection of the galaxy, showing the positions of the Vruxi and several other key species in the sector. "We have only begun to scratch the surface of what the seed has given us," Sarah said to the assembly. "Humanity's capacity for growth is now boundless. We can innovate faster than any other species. We can adapt at a rate no one can predict. But the power we now wield will attract those who wish to control it. The Vruxi won't stop coming, and others will soon join them." General Marcus Reed, who had become one of the central leaders of Earth's military, stood at her side. "We need to fortify our defenses," he said. "If the Vruxi attack again, we'll need a way to hold them off, and soon." Sarah nodded. "That's only part of it. We've already begun to understand how we can utilize this power. Our advancements in weapons technology, AI, and bioengineering are progressing faster than anyone anticipated. But we have to be careful. If we use this power recklessly, we could become no better than the empires that we fear." As the weeks passed, humanity began to accelerate its technological growth. Cities across the planet saw rapid changes. In laboratories and factories, engineers and scientists worked around the clock to harness the newfound potential in every field, from space travel to biotechnology. New weapon systems were developed, ones that harnessed human ingenuity in ways that were previously thought impossible. Soldiers were outfitted with cybernetic enhancements, giving them strength and speed beyond anything humanity had ever known. But Sarah's concern never wavered. While humanity's technological growth was staggering, she knew it wasn't enough to simply have power. They needed control. They needed a moral compass. As Earth's new leader, Sarah knew that humanity's rise must be tempered with wisdom. In deep space labs, research teams, including Calathar, worked with the best minds humanity had to offer to unlock the potential of the seed further. Every human seemed to be awakening, driven by the limitless possibilities now open to them. The human race was no longer limited by time or resources. They were evolving faster than any species before them. But as humanity ascended, the galaxy trembled. The Vruxi were far from finished. A massive fleet, unlike anything seen before, was already en route to Earth. They had learned from their first encounter. This time, they would not be caught off guard. And they had not come alone. The call had gone out. The galaxy's empires had heard the signal, the hum of humanity's awakening, and they would respond in kind. The age of humans had begun, but it was a dangerous path to walk, for power had a price, and war was afoot. The newly united governments of Earth stood on the precipice of greatness, yet Sarah Dillon felt an unease that refused to leave her. As humanity's technological advancements accelerated, a question kept gnawing at her mind. Were they truly ready for what was coming? The seed's power had unlocked unimaginable potential in every field, but it had also cast a shadow over Earth. The galaxy was watching, and the Vruxi were just the beginning. The message sent by the Seed's awakening had reached far and wide, and now every major empire and faction in the galaxy, both known and unknown, had their eyes trained on the human race. Some would seek to ally with Earth, others to dominate it, and a few would seek its destruction. On the Odyssey, Captain Marcus Reed stared at the holographic map of the galaxy, his brow furrowed. They're coming, and they're bringing friends. Sarah, standing beside him, looked at the screen. A massive fleet, comprising not only Orcs ships, but also a variety of other species, was making its way toward Earth. The Confederation of Zervok, a brutal, empire-building race, had responded quickly to the signal, now joining the Orcs in their mission. Smaller ships, too, from dozens of other factions, had begun to align themselves with the growing threat. "This is more than just a Orcs invasion now," Reed said grimly, eyes scanning the incoming fleet. "They've united. We're facing an alliance of galactic empires, each of them hungry for the power we've unleashed." Sarah's pulse quickened, but she held her ground. She knew they couldn't simply run or hide. Not anymore. We can't afford to wait for them to arrive. We have to act first. We have to show them that humanity isn't a species to be trifled with. Back on Earth, the Council convened once more, the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone. As the warships of the Galactic Fleet inched closer to Earth, the leaders of every major nation gathered in the high-tech war room, preparing for the inevitable. "We can't fight them all," General Reed stated, his voice firm. "Not yet. Our defenses are stronger than they think. But if we engage now, it could be the end of humanity before it truly begins." Sarah, her eyes still sharp from the influence of the Seed, stood before the assembly. She could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon her now, expecting her to act. "We don't need to engage them in open warfare yet," she said, her voice steady. "We need to make them fear us, make them understand that humanity is more than a planet of primitive life forms. We can show them what we're capable of, but we do it on our terms. We need leverage, and I know just how to get it." Reed looked at her, his expression shifting from doubt to realization. "You're talking about the Seed, aren't you?" Sarah nodded. "The Seed gave us something that no one else in the galaxy can replicate. We don't just have technology. We have the power to evolve. We can outthink them. We can outmaneuver them. But we have to move fast. The longer we wait, the stronger they get." As the Odyssey prepared to leave Earth's atmosphere, Calithar's voice came through the comms. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Seed's data. The Orcs alliance is more than just a military force. It's a coalition of advanced technologies, and they'll use everything at their disposal to ensure humanity stays under their thumb." Sarah turned to the captain. "We have one advantage. We're unpredictable. While they're busy thinking they can control us, we'll hit them where they least expect it." Reed nodded, his gaze steely. "If we're going to fight, we need a place to start. We need to hit their supply lines, weaken them before they can surround us." The crew, now more united than ever, prepared for the next stage of their mission. The first strike against the galactic forces that had gathered to crush Earth's newfound power. They would find a weakness, some vulnerability in the alliance that would allow them to gain the upper hand. They couldn't afford to wait for the battle to come to them. In the stars above, the fleet of the Orcs and their allies moved closer, but as they neared Earth's orbit, they began to feel an unexpected shift. The power dynamics had changed. For the first time, the galaxy's empires were unsure. There were whispers on the winds of space, rumors of humanity's unyielding growth and the mysterious seed that had triggered it. Some began to wonder if attacking Earth was truly a wise choice. The seed had made humanity a force to be reckoned with, one that could reshape the very balance of power. In the dark corners of the galaxy, the first seeds of doubt began to sprout. The Odyssey rocketed through space, her sleek form cutting through the dark void as the crew prepared for the most critical mission humanity had ever undertaken. They were not only fighting for survival, they were fighting for control over their future. Sarah Dillon, now more certain of her path than ever, stood at the center of the command deck, her mind racing as she considered the steps ahead. "We're about to enter their space," Captain Reed said, his voice low with tension. "Once we make the jump, we'll be in their territory. No turning back." Sarah nodded. She had been considering the risks every moment since they'd set this course. There were few options left, and time was running out. Humanity's sudden technological leap was both a blessing and a curse. It had drawn the attention of the galaxy's most dangerous powers, and now they had to show that they weren't just another target to be crushed. "We need to hit them hard, fast, and then disappear," Sarah said, her tone measured but urgent. "Our best chance at survival is to fracture their alliance before it can fully consolidate. If we can destroy their communications hub, their unity will crumble. They'll be forced to fight amongst themselves." Calithar, his golden eyes gleaming with a mix of caution and excitement, adjusted his data console. "I've been analyzing their fleet structures. They've set up a major relay station in a nearby asteroid field. If we disable it, we could cripple their coordination and buy Earth some time." Reed's eyes narrowed, his military instincts kicking into high gear. "If we strike at that station, we'll have no time to react to the Fruxi or the Zervok's next move. We're going in blind." Sarah met his gaze. "We don't have the luxury of time anymore. We hit them now, or we risk losing everything." Back on Earth, the Global Council was on high alert. With the fleet of galactic empires still advancing, there was no room for error. Nations had rallied around a single cause: protect humanity's new place in the galaxy. But as the hours ticked by, a dark undercurrent of unease settled in. Dr. Sarah Dillon, once merely a scientist, was now Earth's de facto leader, and she was making decisions that would shape the future of their species. A military operation was already underway to shore up Earth's defenses, but the main thrust of the mission rested in space with the Odyssey and its crew. General Reed, now Earth's leading strategist, stood in a war room with his eyes fixed on the holographic map. "We're preparing for the worst-case scenario. We'll need to be ready to respond once we know the Odyssey's outcome. If they fail, we'll have no choice but to engage directly." As the Odyssey neared the asteroid field, Sarah felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She wasn't just leading her crew anymore. She was leading humanity's first steps into galactic warfare. The ancient seed had granted them a power that no one had expected. It had opened their minds to vast knowledge, giving them the ability to innovate faster than any species before them. But as the stakes grew higher, Sarah realized that she had to balance the power of knowledge with wisdom. The temptation to wield this newfound power recklessly could be their undoing. "Ready for the breach," Calithar announced, his voice steady, but the faintest hint of excitement underlay his words. "We'll be in position in 30 seconds. Captain Reed's hands tightened on the controls, his gaze never leaving the console. "Once we make the jump, we'll have a small window of time to disable their systems. After that, we'll need to retreat before they know what hit them." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes cold with resolve. "We do this quickly. Once we've caused the damage, we retreat and send a message. Humanity will not bow to anyone." The Odyssey entered the asteroid field with eerie silence, the ship's advanced cloaking systems rendering them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Sarah, her pulse steady despite the danger, kept her mind focused on the mission. She could feel the power of the seed within her, the vast reservoir of knowledge, giving her the clarity to see the way forward. Every decision had to be calculated, precise. "We're in position." Calithar's voice broke the tension. "Firing now." The Odyssey's weapons systems hummed to life, and in a split second, a series of pulses erupted from the ship, targeting the enemy communications relay. The field was filled with flashes of energy as the relay was struck, a massive explosion rupturing through the asteroid cluster. The relay, once the heart of the Fruxi-Zervok Alliance's coordination, flickered and then went dark. The asteroid field, once quiet and controlled, now hummed with the chaos of scrambled signals and disarray. "We've done it," Reed said, his voice filled with a rare sense of accomplishment. Now we get out of here before they regroup. But just as the crew began to breathe a collective sigh of relief, the stars outside began to shift in a way Sarah hadn't expected. Something was wrong. An unnatural distortion in space itself. She reached out, her mind racing as she realized what was happening. "Captain," she said urgently, "something's not right. The signal, it's evolving." The Odyssey drifted silently through the shattered asteroid field, the aftermath of their successful strike still echoing in the void. Sarah Dillon stared at the swirling mass of debris outside the ship's windows, her thoughts swirling with the same intensity. Their mission to cripple the Fruxy-Zervok alliance had been a success, at least for the moment. The communications relay, now nothing more than a heap of burning wreckage, had thrown the enemy into chaos. But Sarah felt a lingering sense of unease. Something about the distortion she'd felt was far from over. "Captain, we've done it," Callithor said, his voice crackling through the comms, breaking the silence in the command deck. The relay's down, and the signal scrambling has caused a massive disruption in their fleet. Reed's hands rested lightly on the ship's console, his eyes scanning the system sensors. "Good. Now we can get out of here before they regroup." But as the Odyssey began to turn for the jump point, a strange ripple of energy surged through the ship, causing a shudder to run through the hull. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she felt a sharp surge in the space around them. A sudden wave of unnatural energy that rippled outward like a shockwave. "It's happening again," she muttered to herself. Before she could speak further, the distortion expanded, warping the stars outside into strange, bending shapes, as if the very fabric of space-time itself was being stretched. The entire crew braced themselves as the ship jolted violently, the alarms blaring with intensity. "Callithor," Reed barked, his voice tight with alarm. "What the hell is going on?" "It's not a normal distortion, Captain," Callithor responded, his voice laced with concern. "I'm picking up unusual energy signatures coming from a nearby anomaly. This isn't just a ripple in space, it's a fold." Sarah's heart raced. She had studied the concepts of hyperspace folds and dimensional anomalies, but to experience one firsthand, especially one this powerful, was beyond anything she had expected. It was as if the very boundaries of their reality were breaking down. "We're being pulled in," Callithor shouted over the noise of the alarms, his fingers flying over the console. "We're caught in a gravitational field, Captain. It's like nothing I've ever seen." "Can we escape it?" Reed asked, his voice clipped and focused. Callithor shook his head. "I don't know. It's too strong. This kind of fold, it's like a black hole, but it's shifting. It's evolving." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to piece together the situation. The seed had unlocked so much power, so much potential. Could this be connected to what it had revealed to her? She closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts. There had to be a way out. This was no ordinary anomaly. It was alive. Somehow. "I have an idea," she said suddenly, her voice sharp. "Callithor, I need you to sync the ship's systems with the distortion. If we can match its frequency, we might be able to ride the wave instead of being pulled in. It's risky, but we have no other choice." Callithor hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Understood." As Callithor worked to adjust the ship's systems, Sarah glanced at Reed. The captain's face was a mask of concentration, his fingers gripping the armrest of his chair as he guided the ship through the violent fluctuations in space. He trusted her. He had to. This was the only chance they had to survive. The tension in the air was palpable as the crew braced for what was to come. The ship continued to shudder, the distortion growing more intense. The stars outside twisted and bent, folding into strange, impossible shapes. It felt as though the universe itself was unraveling. Then, as if the very air in the ship had solidified, a sudden jolt sent the crew flying against their restraints. The Odyssey lurched forward, propelled by an invisible force as the fold in space began to swallow them whole. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. What was happening? What was this force? And why was it reacting to them? For a brief moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening crash, the Odyssey was thrown into a new dimension of space, an unknown realm where the laws of physics seemed to bend and twist. The stars, once familiar, were now distant and unfamiliar, scattered across a sky that defied explanation. "We're somewhere else," Callithor breathed, his voice barely audible as he tried to make sense of their new surroundings. This isn't the galaxy we know. We've crossed into a different plane of existence." Reed looked at Sarah, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "What did you get us into?" Sarah swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know, but whatever this is, it's connected to the seed. It's reacting to us." The crew stared out at the vast, uncharted space before them. The familiar stars had been replaced by strange, distant lights that pulsed in a way that no star should. Something was out there, beyond their understanding, a force older than anything humanity had ever encountered, and they had just crossed into its domain. The Odyssey drifted silently in the uncharted expanse of distorted space. Outside, the stars pulsed like distant, fading embers, their light fractured and twisted, as though the fabric of reality itself was slowly coming undone. The air inside the ship was thick with tension, the crew glued to their consoles, trying to make sense of the unknown region they had found themselves in. "We're not in the galaxy anymore," Callithor said, his voice barely above a whisper. His golden eyes flickered across the readings on his console, his fingers flying over the controls. This is something else. There's no reference point, no known systems." Sarah Dillon stood at the helm, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The seed's influence pulsed within her, a constant reminder that everything she thought she knew had shifted. Nothing was certain anymore. The ship had barely made it out of the fold intact, and now they were somewhere beyond the reach of anything they could understand. The laws of physics bent and twisted in ways that defied explanation. Gravity was inconsistent, the stars warped, and the very air seemed to hum with a low, unsettling resonance. "I got something," Callithor suddenly said, his voice sharp. "There's a structure, something large, out there." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "A structure? What kind of structure?" Callithor's hands worked quickly, pulling up an image of a massive floating construct, a towering geometric shape unlike anything from their galaxy. It pulsed with a strange energy, its surface shimmering with iridescent patterns. The design was otherworldly, too advanced to be of any known species, but it wasn't just the structure that caught Sarah's attention. It was the rippling energy signature surrounding it. The same kind of energy that had pulled them into this dimension. "What the hell is that?" Reed asked, his voice a mix of awe and fear. He approached the console, his eyes locked on the image. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, "but I think it's the source of this anomaly. The seed, it's connected to it somehow." Callithor's eyes widened. "You think it's alive? That would explain the distortion. This could be an ancient entity or artifact, something older than the galaxy itself." "We have no choice but to approach it," Sarah said, her voice steady, but filled with a cold determination. "We came here for a reason, and that structure is the key. If we want to get back to our galaxy, or if we want to understand what's happening, we have to reach it." Reed hesitated, clearly weighing the dangers, but after a long moment he nodded. "All right, let's go. Full speed ahead."